Well, hi there, everyone, and welcome to this edEVENTS community live stream, where today we're taking a look at a product that may be of interest to teachers looking to integrate aspects of technology into their day-to-day lessons. Just see some people joining now, which is fantastic. Now, a key part of the edEVENTS community is putting the spotlight on solutions that schools can explore and consider, along with shared thoughts and experiences from other educators in the community. So today we have a discussion and demo of Eddy for Teachers by EdMaker. Thanks for tuning in. I'm David Burke, founder of the edEVENTS community, and I'm joined by Terence Tan, the General Manager, North America at EdMaker. Hi there, Terence.
Hi, Dave. Great to be able to join you today.
It's great to have you here, and perhaps you can just sort of kick things off by telling us a little bit about what Eddy is.
Eddy is an online resource for teachers looking to use technology in maker-centric ways in their classroom. I think we recognize that a lot of teachers, especially during the pandemic and post-pandemic, are really enthusiastic about using technology in their classrooms to achieve more equitable student outcomes. But some of us may struggle to use technology in innovative ways that would actually prepare our students for a very uncertain future. So we have a online resource that helps students helps the teachers do that, right? All of our lessons are maker infused. So what I mean by that is we focus on creating with technology, not just consuming technology, because we think that that's going to be the future that our students are going to be in, not just using technology like scrolling on TikTok, but actually creating using technology. So think about the difference between content creation on social media versus just mindlessly scrolling. And I think you get the idea. Our lessons also involve the innovative use of emerging technology. So we are betting on these technologies being integrated into jobs all around the world in the near future. So the obvious candidates are things like AI, augmented reality, virtual reality. So Apple just released a new VR headset yesterday that I think is going to be like transformative, and I think technologies like these will find its way into the job descriptions of any and all jobs. 5 years, 10 years down the future, the kind of world that our students are going to grow up in and going to come into is going to be such that they have to be familiar with these technologies. So we think it's good to expose it to them early. All of our lessons are also standards aligned, so teachers can use it to supplement their academic curriculum. A lot of times, like emerging tech is used as an after school program, but we think that it's so much more powerful to actually help teachers integrate it into their academic curriculum. So not just using AI, kind of like getting kids to explore machine learning, as an after school program, but getting them to think of how they can use machine learning to learn about fractions, how they can use virtual reality tools to create virtual museums that they can learn about, say, history, for example. So that's what we mean by standards align. Another really cool feature that we think is we've included all resources so that teachers don't need to create new resources like exit tickets. I know how frustrating it can be. I used to teach in schools in Singapore, and one of the most frustrating things would be finding a great lesson plan online that you want to implement, only to realize that you got to create like 4 or 5 resources to complement it and to make it work. So in order to avoid that, we've actually created a suite of resources to accompany each lesson package. So it's essentially plug and play if you think about it. And the last thing that we feature is micro learning, kind of e-learning for teachers to learn more about how to integrate technology in the classroom. So that's just an overview of Eddy and kind of where we're coming from. And I think we're looking forward to more teachers actually using the lessons, trying it out, and sharing with us what they think.
Very, very good. Now, Eddy includes lesson plans. Could we perhaps take a look?
Sure, I'd be happy to, Dave. Um, so if you can see up here, this is our. Give me a moment. This is our main page. So if you look down, we have 3 types of resources. We have the tech-infused lesson plans that we mentioned earlier. We have micro-learning units, which are e-learning modules for teachers to get familiar with emerging technology. And we have Maker-Lesson resources, which are still a work in progress. So let's take a look at some of our tech-infused lesson plans. You can browse through this window, but what I think is really cool is you can also filter based on subject, based on grade, based on tech domain, and based on standards, right? So like I mentioned just now, we align with Common Core, ISTE, as well as next generation science standards. So if you're looking to accomplish certain standards in the classroom, you can do a search for it, and then the appropriate lessons will pop up. These four domains are the technological skill sets that we think will be necessary for students to thrive in the future. And we are betting on these technologies being big. So AI, design and simulation, extended reality, as well as programming and coding. So let's just go and see if, let's say I want to teach a fractions lesson, for instance. I'll just go here and then I type, say, fractions, right? Hovering over each of these standards will give me an idea of what they are. Let's say I pick this one, right? And I say I want to pick, I want my kids to be exposed to AI. So I click this. So I click apply. And this lesson pops up. So this is actually one of my favorite lessons. And in this lesson, what the students are doing is essentially creating a simple machine learning model that can differentiate between different types of fractions, between a half and a third and a quarter. And they create a machine learning model that helps to differentiate between that. I'm going to just click in. So off the top of my screen, you can see that it's laid out with different sections on the sidebar. So each of our lessons includes an opening activity, a main activity, and a closing activity. And the entire lesson is 120 minutes long. But feel free to break it up into different segments, to chop it up, to remix it. The time is really an indicative time. And then on the right hand side, you can see the subject, grades, as well as the different standards that align. Within the
Very good.
introduction, mhm,
Please continue.
thanks, Dave. Within the introduction, we have an overview because we know our learners are coming in with certain prior knowledge, and to execute any lesson, we have to know what we need our learners to come in with. So we have a prior knowledge section. One thing to note is the focus of many of our lessons isn't teaching the concept from scratch. So how I would use our lessons is we teach teachers can teach the concept first and then use this as a lesson to reinforce topics or concepts that the students have already learned. So for this one, learners should be able to identify fractions given a pictorial representation, as well as understand equivalent fractions. We also have clear lesson objectives and learning outcomes for each lesson, so they are clear about what students should walk away with. Then we provide a lesson overview with a simple, one sentence summary of each segment of the lesson, just to give teachers a really high level view of what each segment will kind of consist of, right? And we have all resources here ready for you to download and remix. Let me just, Dave, can I share a different tab? Let me try to
Absolutely.
do that. Mhm. There we go.
And here it comes. Yep.
So loading one of our resources, which are downloadable for all teachers. This is the deck of slides you'll be using with your students. So there's no having to create a separate set of slides for our lesson plan. We have everything designed for you guys. You can download the slides as a PowerPoint, or you can actually copy it as your own presentation and feel free to remix it. We only ask that if you're using it in your classroom, you just give us a little bit of credit and keep the header there, but feel free to remix any of the content, because I know that each class is different and you guys might want to change the the content. Let's go back to Eddy for a little bit. And so we have a clear pre-lesson preparation, which is basically what you have to do before the lesson in order to prepare your class or prepare your resources for the lesson, right? And something I think is very cool are these tooltips, right? So we have 3 types of tooltips. The light bulb reflects real-world applications as well as pedagogical concepts that we're implementing in our lessons. So just to give you a better idea of the real-world applications of AI, for example, in this case, or if we want to elaborate on why we want to use a jigsaw activity for a certain segment, this is where we'll put it. So putting a mouse over will have a tooltip that comes up, which shares a bit more about one of those things. So the flow for the opening activity and the other activities is pretty similar. We have the slide numbers on the side and the activity on the right-hand side. So you can just run through the lesson plan by looking through how we are actually conceptualizing it. And we think the instructions are relatively clear, so that even if teachers don't really have much familiarity with machine learning in this case, you'll be able to execute the lesson just by trying it out yourself. Right. In the introductory segment for this opening activity, we're actually revising students' understanding of fractions, as well as equivalent fractions. And then the students play a game of fraction bingo, which is like a interactive game that kind of consolidates their understanding of what fractions are. And we think this is necessary because they have to be clear about what fractions and equivalent fractions are before they move on to the machine learning activity in the next stage, right? I mentioned about the tooltips just now, right? And I introduced one example, which is the real world applications one, the light bulb. We also include another type of tooltip, which are differentiation activities or differentiation for learners of different profiles. So in this case, we have differentiation for learners who require more support as well as more advanced learners, right? And we're always continually thinking about how to adjust our lesson for learners from different backgrounds, just because we think it's important to cater to a very diverse group of learners. So after the opening activity, that's where the main activity comes in, and this is where the fun really happens, right? They're gonna make a machine smart by training it to recognize fractions, right? So what we do is we will unpack what machine learning is, and these guidelines over here are all aligned to what you see on the slide. So we're going to explain how machine learning works by using a worked example. So we give an example of a machine trying to recognize fruits, trying to differentiate between an apple and a banana. And then we unpack the concept for them to say that, how we might train the machine to recognize apple um, is to show them a bunch of images, right? Different types of apples versus different types of bananas, right? So we've actually laid all that out in the slide deck. This is just a guideline for the teachers who are implementing it. And then what they do is we have a worksheet, right? Where if they fill up, they'll be guided through how to um, navigate machine learning for kids, which some of you might be familiar with. It's a free online software, browser-based software that helps to train machine learning models, and it's very intuitive. No coding is required. We don't have much time to go through machine learning for kids in details, but if you're interested, strongly recommend you check it out. Look through this lesson. All the details and all the content is included in order to figure out how to work machine learning for kids on your own before you're implementing it into the classroom. We also include a tech tutorial because we know that sometimes what we feature in our lesson plan might not be detailed enough to provide you with an idea of what the software, what machine learning for kids actually is. So I'm just going to pop it open, and I'm going to switch my tab. Boop.
And just while we're waiting for Terence to come back on here, just remember that you can add some comments to the bottom. Great to see a comment from Craig Kemp just there. Great to have you, Craig. And Terence is back.
Hey Craig, yeah, great to see you with us today. Yeah, sorry I dropped off. I just clicked the wrong button. But I was talking about our tech tutorials, and so we have a very simple document that we use to lay out. And this is teacher facing. This is intended for teacher consumption to learn about what the software we're using features and kind of the affordances of the software that we're using. Just an overview of what the software is in a simple Google Doc file. We don't want to overcomplicate things. Yeah.
Very good. I actually have a question, Terence. Just wondering who develops this content? Where does it come from?
Yeah, so we have an in-house team made out of, we develop everything in-house. So we have a team of curriculum developers and technologists. So some of us, like myself, have a background in education. I've been teachers for a while. Others are interested in education, but their background is in technology. So they are, folks who have dabbled in machine learning and augmented reality, virtual reality, kind of domain specialists who are interested to see how it applies to the field of education. So that's essentially kind of what the kind of people developing these lesson plans are. Most of us have extensive classroom experience, so I think one challenge that we face is sometimes technologists or people with a great background in technology are like, this content is awesome, we want to make it available to all our teachers, and then as educators, our job is to come in and, okay, well, then how do we scaffold it to help our students understand it? Because we're going to throw everything at them, it's going to like overwhelm them, right? So how do we break it down? How do we scaffold it? And in certain cases, how do we simplify it, right? When it comes to technology, sometimes you got to simplify before you add in the nuances and add in the more complex stuff at the end. So those are some of the considerations that we've had to do along the way as we're creating our lessons.
And I could see that there were some, curriculum standards there. What are the curriculum standards that are used?
So because our product is targeted at the US market, so we feature Common Core. So Common Core Math, Common Core ELA, next generation science standards, as well as ISTE standards. And as I mentioned just now, you're able to, toggle to you're able to actually filter by standards, which I think some teachers have told us that's really useful because they're always looking for lessons that are aligned to particular standards that they got to teach in their classrooms. So.
Well, those ISTE standards certainly helping a lot of schools, even if they're not using Common Core. Now, who should use Eddy?
So I think it's interesting. We designed Eddy initially to target teachers. So definitely teachers who are just starting out and bringing innovative technology into their classrooms, but might not be so familiar with them. I think the resources that we provide are certainly helpful. Teachers who are passionate about maker education. Most of our lesson plans involve, well, not makerette in terms of, when people think of makerette, they think of, robotics, Arduinos, physical making, but there's this new field of digital making that involves students actually tinkering with online tools. So most of our lesson plans actually get students to get their hands dirty in creating online artifacts. Whether it's in machine learning for kids or in Tinkercad or in another software. So teachers who are passionate about maker education might find something that useful there. But apart from teachers, we've also spoken to people who would be using it for homeschooling. So as a parent, I might find it interesting to go through some of these lessons with my kids, right, on their device, as well as definitely after school programs. In fact, one of our pilots is going to be in a summer school program in Somerville in Massachusetts. So those are just certain different demographics that have found what we do useful, at least in the short few months that we've been around.
Very nice. Now, we actually got a couple of teachers here who I'm just letting them know that they're about to come on screen, but let's welcome them in. So we have Rihanna and Alyssa. So good morning or good evening, wherever you are.
Hello.
Thanks for joining us.
Good evening.
Yeah, Rihanna and Alyssa have been so gracious to join us. I believe they're at least 8 hours away, so it's nighttime for them. I really want to thank them for spending a bit of time with us and joining with us on this webinar. Just a brief introduction. Rihanna and Alyssa are they're really champions and they're really like partners of Eddy. They have been super useful in piloting some of the lessons that you see on Eddy within their own classrooms, and we think that's so powerful because um, as with any other new launch, we want to get our products into the hands of our users, right? And we want to get feedback, we want to find ways to improve. So Rihanna and Alyssa have been great in kind of giving us that feedback, telling us what works, what we got to tweak. And this would have been possible without their direct kind of feedback. But anyway, yeah, Alyssa and Rihanna, would you like to introduce yourself before we move on to a couple of other questions?
Sure. My name is Alyssa. I teach fourth grade in New York City. Um, and I've been teaching for about 10 years. So I taught during the whole COVID pandemic, just trying to find ways to incorporate technology in the classroom. And now trying to bring it to my students because I find that a lot of their energy and a lot of their thoughts are with technology anyways, so finding useful ways to bring it to them for educational purposes.
Thanks,
Fantastic.
Alyssa. Rihanna?
Good evening. I'm Rihanna. I've been teaching for approximately 18 years. I've taught from kindergarten to 12th grade, and I've infused technology for the past, I believe, like 10 years. We started out with gizmos in public school, but since I came across EdMaker, it was even more exciting and such a thrill for my children and myself to teach it and to get so much involved in it. I enjoyed every minute of it.
Thanks so much, Rahana. Well, is there anything you would like to share? Maybe one thing we can do is, could you share with our audience the lessons that you tried out at Eddy, and maybe just share your experiences conducting it? What went on through your mind when you were planning, how the actual experience was like, as well as like any thoughts about conducting it like after that?
So I actually this morning, well, since I'm in New York, I did the fraction genius lesson with my fourth graders. We just are wrapping up our fraction unit. So they had a lot of background on equivalent fractions and identifying fractions. So I thought it would be fun for them to use this AI to show what they know about fractions. And as soon as I said AI, they were like so excited to actually be able to do it themselves. So my students, we have iPads at my school. We have Chromebooks, but I find that we don't really, as teachers, incorporate them as much as we should. So that was just like already going into it. I knew that it would, as the teacher, it would take a lot on my part. It was super helpful, like having the lesson plan. Like I printed it out for myself. I kind of like chunked it as like, okay, this is our warm up. This is what my students already know. This is kind of review. And then we started out with the bingo game. So Terrence had showed this lesson actually before, and this is the exact lesson that I did today. As soon as I said game, they were like, yay, we get to play bingo. Um, and then we finally got into the actual like AI activity. And my students had like, even when we started opening up Safari on the iPad, some of them were like, where do I type in? Like, what do I type in for the website? So, like, that's the extent of experience they have, like using educational platforms and different, like incorporating it in their learning. But once they got started, like I was walking around and I was shocked at like what they were doing and how much they loved it. So what they ended up doing is I printed off like little fraction pieces for them, like circles, and they colored in the fractions that they wanted to teach the AI. and they like were taking pictures of them, and then they finally got to test it, and it tells you like 100% like this is a 3/4 fraction. So they were excited, like, oh, we did a good job, we like taught the machine. um and even like at the end of the day they were like, can we do this again? So I think it's important too to just like show students that there are ways to incorporate technology to learn, and not just like to look at TikTok or to like go on their phone and FaceTime their friends. I think that it's really important to show them like you can do all of these things using technology. And when you learn how to do this, like there's so many doors that open up for them. I mean, a lot of my students talk about too like how they want to like be a gamer when they grow up, or be a YouTuber and stuff like that, but there's so many other opportunities for them like within technology. And as teachers, I think it's our job to really open those doors for them and show them what is possible. And I feel like this lesson was just like a glimpse of what they can learn. So I really enjoyed doing it in my class. It was super simple to like have that lesson plan, and like have everything planned out. All the resources are there. I loved how I could just like click through the links, be like, oh, I'm going to use that resource, and like print it. I feel like I find a lot of the time I'll like find a cool lesson or find a resource, and I'm like, oh, I have to like add this to it, or I have to like change that. But I use the lesson as it was, and I felt like it was exactly like what my students needed. It was the level they were at. Um, and it was very easy to just like decide to incorporate it within my curriculum. So I had a very good experience with it.
Thanks, Alyssa. Yeah, I really like what you
Course.
said about the idea that students can do so much more in terms of careers in technology and exposing them to technology. It's not just about TikToks. I think that gets to the heart of what we're trying to gets to the heart of what we're trying to do. Rihanna, how about you? Do you want to share about your experiences?
So some of the first two lessons that I taught on EdMaker was the Sound Symphony, and with that lesson, I first had to teach the children about sound and the concepts of sounds, and the difference between waves and wavelengths and decibels and things like that. And that's when I incorporated, after teaching them the basics, I incorporated the Sound Symphony, and they created their own sounds and beats with the AI instruments on the Sound Symphony. After that, we did the towering arithmetic, which that one was, I went over it during my spring break, and I followed the instructions step by step, and I created it myself in order to go back after spring break to teach to my children. So that was helpful as well. So I know if I'm able to understand the instructions that was given on Eddy, I would be able to teach it to my children. And since that it was step by step by step, I was able to follow it one step, do this, went over, read it, did it, read it, did it, read it, did it. So that was easy as well. The last lesson we did was the fraction one, the fraction genius, and we broke that up into several different parts. The kids enjoyed that. And they took it, some of the children took it even further, where they even did the scratch portion of it, and they created their own games with it. I know one of my fifth grade girls, she did the princess game with the princess and the tower and the castle, and to get the princess through the maze with the scratch game. So the resources that Eddy provides, it's geared towards children on the high functioning level and the low functioning level. So you can tweak your lesson based on what your children are learning and able to understand. And the ones who can function at a higher level, they're able to move on and continue on and understand it even more, and go on to doing other things and learning more about technology. Another lesson that I did was map your way, with the Google Map. That was one of the last lessons I did. and the children enjoyed exploring around the neighborhood where our school was located and mapping their way from the school to the home. Children didn't even know they were capable of doing that, and they learned that Google tracks them. It's fun. I enjoy doing it, so I know if I'm enjoying doing it, my children are having fun doing it as well.
Thanks, Rihanna. Would you have any, either of you have any final advice for teachers kind of looking to implement one of these lessons in their classrooms?
I would say that I feel like it can be kind of overwhelming to be like, okay, I'm going to do this with my students. Like, how am I going to manage them? Like, I don't feel like I'm like very strong with technology. So I'm like, like Rihanna said, like, I had to go and learn the whole lesson before I did it myself, like, before I taught it. But it is worth it to do it, and the students enjoy it. They really do. And I feel like it kind of like speaks to them too, and what their life is like. Technology is everywhere for them. So I think it just really helps them see the importance of things that they could do with it.
Thanks, Alyssa. How about you, Rihanna? Any advice for teachers looking to implement one of these lessons in your classroom?
You can implement any of these lessons in their classrooms because they're geared and they cater to all different levels. You can have your fifth graders doing it or your first graders doing it. For the fraction genius, we had a second grader program the computer, her Chromebook, to recognize the fractions, and we had one of the fifth graders training her little princess to go through the maze answering her fraction questions. So with the same lesson, it depends on what the child is able to do and how far you're willing to push them. So you can take any of the Eddy lessons and you can push your children, or you can just keep it at a easy pace for the ones who need a little bit more attention.
Thanks, Rihanna. Yeah, I think that speaks to kind of the differentiation point that we mentioned earlier, that we want to, uh, you know, tweak the lessons to cater to students' different profiles. Because I think this is also kind of like a inclusivity and equity kind of thing for us too. We think that technology should be accessible to all, right? A wide range of students, not just those with the ability or the capacity or the resources, right, to use it. Anyway, Dave, I think we can go back to you.
Yeah, well, look, thanks very much, Rihanna and Alyssa. Please stick around, and after the stream, would like to just catch up again and say a proper goodbye. But thank you very much for your time. No worries if you have to go.
Of course.
Thank you very
Thank you
much.
so much. Yeah, thanks
You're
so much, Rihanna and
welcome.
Alyssa.
Now, Terence, we do have a couple of questions, so I thought it might be a chance as we just wrap up to go over a couple of those. And actually, a couple of the questions are focused on, of course, the topic of the moment, AI. So it looks like Ryan Tannenbaum has been online today. He's asked the question, where does the new generative AI technology fit into curriculum planning? And what are the roles of domain experts?
So I think, I'll answer this in a, well, I won't say indirect, but I'll first address how we use generative AI, then I'll talk about my personal philosophy on how generative AI can feature within content creation, and then perhaps also talk about it as a possible software that students can use. So approaching it from different angles, right? So I think we tried using generative AI to create full lesson plans. We're still not sure it works completely, just because the resources that you train it on, right? Because generative AI is based on the corpus of text or knowledge or resources out there, right? So what's getting thrown out to us isn't, or what's getting shown to us, right, when we use generative AI to try to create full lesson plans, isn't completely satisfactory. And I think it's also because a lot of these emerging technologies are by definition new. So our large language models might not know how best to create content for technology that is also just as new, right? So reflecting on that whole situation, I think we still need uh, a human hand to kind of make sense of the curriculum creation process. And that's why AI for us is like a co-pilot. I think we found it helpful to use AI to generate the outline or the rough structure of how uh, emerging technology can be used in different lessons. But when it comes to fleshing out the different details, right, it's still fuzzy. If I ask ChatGPT or BART how we can differentiate for stronger learners or learners with special needs for a lesson activity using machine learning for kids, I don't think the results were going to be particularly helpful for us. So I think there is still the role of the expert on the ground, precisely because what a lot of our generative AI tools are being trained on is older or is not as recent as the emerging technology tools that we're using within the lesson itself. Does that make sense, David?
Yeah, I think I totally agree. I mean, the importance of the curriculum expert is the most important thing to keep in mind. The last thing that we would really want is to be basing all of our lessons off the hallucinations of some AI. But I think you're right on the money there. I have a question here. I was going to ask, what is it that sets Eddy apart from other similar sort of curriculum management systems or other sort of online resources? And I think it
Yeah.
probably is that expertise.
Yeah. And I think well, I mean, some of the other players within the content creation field for teachers, like the big one is of course teachers pay teachers, but there's this whole conversation about
Mm.
how generative AI is going to upend and kind of it's spelling the end for teachers pay teachers. But I don't know. We're a little bit different from them, right? So if I was a teacher and I mean when I used to teach, I would go on the teachers pay teachers half an hour before my lesson because I'm scrambling to find a worksheet. I don't have time to plan my lesson. What we are doing on Eddy is a bit different. We're saying that you do need to spend a bit of time planning for it, like what Alyssa and Rehanna mentioned, but the returns you're getting in terms of what your students are going to be getting out of it is going to be so much more. So, in other words, it's not a quick fix, right? We're presenting high quality resources, but I think as a teacher, you have to probably also spend a bit of time digesting, internalizing it. We have all the resources that we have out there, um, but using these in your classroom, especially if you're not familiar with emerging technology, requires a bit of you know uh, legwork or pre-lesson prep on your part. So that's why I see as the trade-off, right? Between what we do and what other content portals do. The returns though are just so much different, right? When I'm downloading a resource of Teachers Pay Teachers and I'm just using it, yeah, okay, it's sorting out what I need to do in that lesson. But if I really want to get my students familiar with technology and have them actually use it in ways that are similar to what industry does it in the future, then I think we got to take a different tack. Yeah.
Now, for people who are watching this, wherever they're watching this online, of course, they can have any questions after this live stream, and I'm sure you'll be more than willing to engage with those people. But is there anywhere else where people can continue to sort of learn more and perhaps share their use of Eddy?
Yeah, so I think a couple of ways. We have a pretty thriving kind of LinkedIn. So please go. We can invite all our listeners to go on LinkedIn, type in Eddy. We're up there. Maybe just follow our page. We have frequent content updates on the types of content we're posting on Eddy. We also have a Facebook group. We just started it, and we want it to be a place where teachers are commenting on how they've used Eddy or suggesting ways they've used Eddy in the classroom. We welcome people to try out the lessons on Eddy and then post them on our Facebook group, so that other teachers have an idea of how they can carry down their classroom. So things like student artifacts, videos of the teachers in action. So we welcome all of that. We want to create this community where teachers are sharing how they've used a resource, right? Because we know that teachers learn best from other teachers, right? In any profession, you learn best from seeing other people doing their craft. So that's what we have been doing. Let me just show a screen. Let me just flash my screen to show you guys where it's at. There we go. Pop it up. So the Facebook group is actually over here, right? The idea is that once you've seen a lesson and have an idea of how you want to do it, you can click on Visit Group, and it will bring you to our Facebook community, right? We just started a couple of weeks ago, but we're looking to get more teachers share their content here so that other teachers can learn from it. So the idea is that we want to build a movement also of teachers who are using emerging technology in their classrooms, who are trying to get their students really excited about these things. So this is a Facebook, the community that we have. The last way you can get involved is to simply give a comment at the bottom of each page, at the bottom of each lesson plan. If, say, I tried this lesson today, worked great with my students, then I can click send, and then, oh,
You got to sign up, Terence.
I know, gotta sign up. But anyway, let me just navigate back. Yeah, like I said, worked great, for instance, and then I click send, and then my comment should pop up below. Yep, over here. So that's another way you can let other teachers and other users know how the lesson went. Yeah, and you can even vote on other people's comments. So we want to get this crowdsourced community commenting and sharing about ways they've implemented their lessons and tweaks they've made to actually make the lesson go better.
Very good. I think we should also make sure that all these links are just in the comments, so it goes out to all of the platforms that people are watching. So after this, just make sure that goes out there.
Sure.
Look, just the edEVENTS community platform is in its soft, an early member of the community by registering at that link that's up there in the top right corner, ed.events, and you can become an early pioneer as we continue our soft launch of the edEVENTS community. Now, look, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much, Terence, Alyssa, and Rihanna for taking the time, and for all of those people who've commented or just been watching. Thank you for tuning in, and of course, if you're watching later, thanks again. Terence, thanks very much for your time.
No worries, Dave. Yeah, great to be here today and to chat with all the viewers here on your webinar. I always love seeing these conversations happen because I think it's important that that's the whole idea of having an edEVENTS community, right? To have a community of like-minded individuals come together to share about things that matter to them. Dave, I can't seem to be able to copy and paste the URL of Eddy for Teachers, but is there any way you can help me paste in the comments?
Yeah, that's coming up right now, and there we go. So it's just simply www.eddyforteachers.com, and I'll pop it up on the screen there now. Make sure you get there and check it out, because I think for those schools looking to utilize this resource, it's a no-brainer. So thank you very much again, Terence, and thank you to everyone. And hopefully look forward to seeing everyone on the next live stream very soon. Have a great day.
Thank you, everyone.